Hi guys, welcome back. I sure hope you enjoyed Mrs. Carlson as the guest reader for Holes, Chapter 7. She was really thrilled to be able to read for you because she really misses you. All right, so I will be recapping Chapter 7 and reading Chapter 8 and 9 because Chapter 8 is very, very short. But before I do, a quick joke. What happens if a frog's car breaks down? It gets towed. Get it? Frog, toad. Okay, hope you like my daily dose of laughter. Just to recap in Chapter 7. So that was a long chapter. And I kind of misled Miss Carlson, and I didn't really intentionally do that, but I just said that, usually on average I've been reading like 6 to 7 minutes, and then poor Mrs. Carlson had a 28-minute chapter. She was wonderful about it and didn't complain. So Chapter 7, if you'll recall, went back and forth between Stanley Yelnat's great-great-grandfather and Stanley at the camp. And so it kind of talked about his great-great-grandfather and how his name was Elia, and he fell in love with Myra, and he wanted to marry Myra. But Igor was also pining for her. Pining means he's also like going for her, interested in her, So they kind of had this back and forth thing and then he met Madame Zeroni, and Madame Zeroni said, well, take this runt pig every day up and down the mountain and make it drink from the stream. And then she also said, and I need you to carry me up the mountain at the end, or you're going to have a curse put on your family. And then it went back to Stanley Yelnats digging the hole, and it talked about how it was his first time, very, very hot, super hard work. Everyone seemed to be finishing ahead of him. Then it would go back to Stanley Yelnats' grandfather, Elia, and in the end, Elia did not marry Myra. Instead, he moved to America, and he fell in love with someone else. And it wasn't until his barn burnt down 3 times that he remembered the curse. And so he told his wife that he was cursed, and he said, just leave me. And she said, her name was Sarah, his new wife, and she said, well, of course I'm not going to leave you. Teach me the song. And he taught her the lullaby, and they ended up singing the lullaby, or she sang the lullaby, and when they had a baby, they named him Stanley, because she's the one that realized that Yelnats spelled backwards is Stanley. So Chapter 8, I think that brings you up to speed. So Chapter 8 is very short. A lot of people don't believe in curses. A lot of people don't believe in yellow spotted lizards either, but if one bites you, it doesn't make a difference, whether you believe it or not. Actually, it is kind of odd that scientists named the lizard after its yellow spots. Each lizard has exactly 11 yellow spots, but the spots are hard to see on its yellow-green body. The lizard is from 6 to 10 inches long, so like that, yeah, maybe, and has big red eyes. In truth, its eyes are yellow, and it is the skin around the eyes which is red, but everyone always speaks of its red eyes. It also has black teeth and a milky white tongue. Looking at one, you would have thought it should have been named a red-eyed lizard, or a black-toothed lizard, or perhaps a white-tongued lizard. If you've ever been close enough to see the yellow spots, you're probably dead. The yellow-spotted lizards like to live in holes, which offer shade from the sun and protection from predatory birds. Up to 20 lizards may live in one hole. They have strong, powerful legs and can leap out of very deep holes to attack their prey. They eat small animals, insects, certain cactus thorns, and the shells of sunflower seeds. That's Chapter 8, so now I'm on Chapter 9. Stanley stood in the shower and let the cold water pour over his hot and sore body. It was 4 minutes of heaven. For the second day in a row, he didn't use soap. He was too tired. There was no roof over the shower building, and the walls were raised up 6 inches off the ground, except in the corners. There was no drain in the floor. The water ran out under the walls and evaporated quickly in the sun. He put on his clean set of orange clothes. He returned to his tent, put his dirty clothes in his crate, got his pen and stationery out, and headed to the rec room. A sign on the door said, Rec Room, W-R-E-C-K. The difference between rec room, like R-E-C, rec room that's short for recreation room, And a rec room, somebody put this note on the door, W-R-E-C-K, meaning the room was a wreck, like a mess. So you can imagine kind of what he's going into. Nearly everything in the room was broken. The TV, the pinball machine, the furniture. Even the people looked broken, with their worn-out bodies sprawled over the various chairs and sofas. X-Ray and Armpit were playing pool. The surface of the table reminded Stanley of the surface of the lake. It was full of bumps and holes because so many people had carved their initials into the felt. There was a hole in the far wall, and an electric fan had been placed in front of it. Cheap air conditioning. At least the fan worked. As Stanley made his way across the room, he tripped over an outstretched leg. "Hey, watch it," said an orange lump on a chair. "You watch it," muttered Stanley, too tired to care. "What'd you say?" the lump demanded. "Nothing," said Stanley. The lump rose. He was almost as big as Stanley and a lot tougher. "You said something." He poked his fat finger in Stanley's neck. "What'd you say?" A crowd quickly formed around them. "Be cool," said X-Ray. He put his hand on Stanley's shoulder. "You don't want to mess with the caveman," he warned. "The caveman's cool," said Armpit. "I'm not looking for trouble," Stanley said. "I'm just tired, that's all." The lump grunted. X-Ray and Armpit led Stanley over to the couch. Squid slid over to make room as Stanley sat down. "Did you see the caveman back there?" X-Ray asked. "The caveman's one tough dude," said Squid, and he quickly and lightly punched Stanley's arm. Stanley leaned back against the torn vinyl upholstery. Despite his shower, his body still radiated heat. "I wasn't trying to start anything," he said. The last thing he wanted to do after killing himself all day on the lake was to get in a fight with a boy named Caveman. He was glad X-Ray and Armpit had come to his rescue. "Well, how'd you like your first hole?" asked Squid. Stanley groaned and the other boys laughed. "Well, the first hole's the hardest," said Stanley. "No way," said X-Ray. "The second hole's a lot harder. You're hurting before you even get started. If you think you're sure now, just wait and see how you feel tomorrow morning, right?" "That's right," said Squid. "Plus, the fun's gone," said X-Ray. "The fun?" asked Stanley. "Don't lie to me," said X-Ray. "I bet you always wanted to dig a hole, right? Am I right?" Stanley had never really thought about it before, but he knew better than to tell X-Ray he wasn't right. "Every kid in the world wants to dig a hole, a great big hole," said X-Ray. "To China, right?" "Right," said Stanley. "See what I mean?" said X-Ray. "That's what I'm saying. But now the fun's gone, and you still got to do it again, and again, and again." "Camp fun and games," said Stanley. "What's in the box?" asked Squid. Stanley had forgotten he had brought it. Paper. I was going to write a letter to my mother." "Your mother?" laughed Squid. "She'll worry if I don't." Squid scowled. Stanley looked around the room. This was the only place in camp where the boys could enjoy themselves. And what'd they do? They wrecked it. The glass on the TV was smashed as if someone had put his foot through it. Every table and chair seemed to be missing at least one leg. Everything leaned. He waited to write the letter until after Squid had gotten up and joined the game of pool. "Dear Mom, today was my first day at camp, and I've already made some friends. We've been out on the lake all day, so I'm pretty tired. Once I pass the swimming test, I'll get to learn how to water ski." He stopped writing as he became aware that somebody was reading over his shoulder. He turned to see Zero, standing behind the couch. "I don't want her to worry about me," he explained. Zero said nothing. He just stared at the letter with a serious, almost angry look on his face. Stanley slipped it back into the stationery box. "Did the shoes have red X's on the back?" Zero asked him. It took Stanley a moment, but then he realized Zero was asking about Clyde Livingston's shoes. "Yes, they did," he said. He wondered how Zero knew that brand. He knew that. Brand X was a popular brand of sneakers. Maybe Clyde Livingston made a commercial for them. Zero stared at him for a moment, with the same intensity with which he had been staring at the letter. Stanley poked his finger through a hole in the vinyl couch and pulled out some of the stuffing. He wasn't aware that he was doing it. "Come on, Caveman, dinner," said Armpit. "You coming, Caveman?" said Squid. Stanley looked around to see that Armpit and Squid were talking to him. Sure," he said. He put the piece of stationery back in the box, then got up and followed the boys out to the tables. The lump wasn't the caveman. He was. He shrugged his left shoulder. it was better than barf bag. So now we know that Stanley has a nickname, and his nickname is Lump. But kind of sad that he feels like he has to write his mom a letter and lie and say that if I pass the swimming test, I'll learn to water ski. So I want you guys to make an inference. Why do you think he is writing that to his mom? And tune in tomorrow for chapter 10.